Good evening. Welcome to the Wareham Planning Board meeting of Monday, February 10th, being held in room 520 of the Wareham Multi-Service Center, being broadcast by WCTV. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock with a roll call.
Mike Baptiste here.
Jane Gleason here.
Julie Moran here.
And the chair, Carl Schultz, is here. We have a quorum and the meeting is open. First item of business is approval of minutes for January 13th. That was a very quick meeting before town meeting. Any discussion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Sam Corbett.
Accept the minutes. Second.
Second by Julie Moran. All in favor?
Mike Baptiste, aye.
Jane Gleason, aye.
Julie Moran, aye.
Sam Corbett, aye.
And the chair votes aye, so the minutes of January 13 are accepted and approved 5-0-0. The minutes of January 27th, I'm holding I needed a piece of information. So for the record, because it wasn't recorded, the meeting opened the January 27th meeting opened at 6 o'clock. Immediately following that, Sam Corbett made a motion to recess until such time as we were able to get the technology stack running and broadcast. That was seconded by Julie Moran, and on a vote of 5-0-0, we adjourned at 6:02. Then we came back into session at 6:21. So Patty, I will get you those updates and corrections to the minutes, and we'll have the 27th at our next meeting. Thank you. The next order of business, a report from the planning office on pending applications. Josh is not here. All the items really from now on depend on Josh. All right, so I'll defer the report from the planning office, and we'll move into a discussion on the statement of work from Miloš Pečovský, professor in practice and associate department head at Worcester Polytech. As you know, we're discussing engaging Mr. Pečovský to evaluate the battery energy storage system for the Fearing Hill project. Once we agree on the statement of work, we'll send it to Miloš and we'll send it to the applicant, and we'll move forward on that. Any discussion? Basically, this is the same statement of work that we used for the New Leaf project. I modified appropriate language. So any discussion on the statement of work?
Just a few comments. Very nice work. I know we used the prior template, but good job putting this together. What I would ask, and maybe in our discussions with our consultant, that he is able to obtain a more specific understanding of the specifications of this battery storage system. I know our applicant had mentioned it was a Tesla system. Tesla makes many systems. We really don't have the specifics, don't have the size necessarily. We know where it's going to sit right now, but it would be most unfortunate if our consultant came back and was not able to give us the type of expertise and advice that we're looking for. So maybe a conversation with him. And I know it's difficult to get all the exact specifications, but if we can have some understanding beyond what we have right now, I think that his assistance will be more effective in that regard.
So can I add to that I think that looking for real fine-tuned specificity from him is not something that we can get right now that's going to have any degree of accuracy because of just the process of specifying and procuring materials and equipment to go onto such a site.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen, that doesn't really get pinned down 100% until they're ready to order it. And it's a moving target for the builders, it's a moving target for the suppliers. It's just, it's a bit of a fluid market. So I think that what we should be looking for from him is something that is fairly general. I think that's the best that we could get. And
Performance standards that we could put in
Correct.
conditions of approval.
Exactly.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
performance standards,
A
yeah,
generic one.
performance standards are exactly what we're looking for. And I think that performance standards are something that needs to go into our solar bylaw.
Yeah.
And I have even wondered if the performance standards might want to go, be referenced in the solar bylaw, but be placed in the rules and regulations so that we can adjust them as we get more information as the technology develops. But I think that performance standards are something that we really need to attack.
Yeah.
And I guess I would also like him to, we had the benefit of, it's 3 years later, I think, or 2.5 since we last worked with him, of things like what has the research determined on fire suppression systems and safety issues. So I'm hoping that we will get the benefit of his research and experience over the last 2.5 years, again, to, as you said, Jane, include all of that in the standards monitoring. What's the monitoring system? All of that. So we really have, even if we don't have make and model, we have an understanding of how we would deal with the different events that may unfortunately occur if they were to occur. So that's,
But if it changes, we can require that. We'd be notified of the change if it's a different model or a different whatever.
Yeah. All right, so we'll see what hopefully he can be more effective than he was with New Leaf. Okay, so I'll add a couple of these line items to the
And I
statement of
think,
work.
to lead off where Jane was coming from, I think in the bylaw, it should be written that we have the leeway when technology changes for us to
Right.
catch up. So in other words, they don't come and says, well, you said this last year, but it doesn't fit in this case this year. You know, as it changes, we can change also, we're flexible. We're not, it's
All
not
right,
a great
we
big
could talk
stop.
about the solar bylaw when Josh
and
presents it.
sorry, one more thing. I see this project as a bit different. So many of the projects, and much of before my time, the applicant did not have an interconnection agreement. So we were talking about years out. In this case, my understanding is there is a executed interconnection agreement. So I think the runway is a lot shorter than maybe some of the other projects. So
We
just
need to
if
be
we could keep that
careful
in mind.
to talk only about the statement of work. We cannot talk about the application because the applicant is not here.
Agreed.
And we're not in public hearing.
Yep.
So we're talking about the statement of work. So I will add a couple of these line items and then work with Ken and Josh to get this off to Milosh and to the applicant. I don't think we need a vote on that. We've already voted to engage with Milosh. Okay.
Agreed.
Welcome, Josh.
Thank you.
We took care of Milosh's statement of work. Did you have any comment before we close that item?
Nope.
Ken, did you want to say anything about the statement of work? Hearing none? Okay. We did skip over the report from the planning office. We are going to talk about a couple of the, right now, there's nothing pending. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, thank you.
And we could talk about that, I know.
Yeah, there's a couple of places on the agenda. All right, moving on to item 2. At the January 27th meeting, we voted to schedule the public hearing for Zero Maple Springs large ground-mounted solar array for February 24th. After review with the planning office, it was determined that that application is incomplete. It was incomplete at the time I put the agenda together, and we will not be holding the public hearing on February 24th. Josh, do you have any other updates? Is that going to come to us, or is that going to the ZBA?
So I would say right now it's incomplete because it's missing the denial letter from our building commissioner.
Right.
And the building commissioner is the one who makes the determination on where these applications go.
Okay,
I would say our only hesitation right now on not putting it in front of you is there's a variance required because the lot lines run through the middle of the project. Obviously, they didn't propose 50-foot offsets in the middle of their project. So while we're waiting for the determination from the building commissioner, the applicant is also looking potentially in a way to not need that variance. Whether that be through an A&R to change the lot lines or something around those means. But that's why I'd say it's still currently incomplete.
okay. And then, but the good news is you've engaged a consulting engineer to evaluate the plan set. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we're moving forward with the process where we were starting the consulting engineer ahead of the whole getting to us. That way, when we actually do have the public hearing, or if the ZBA, that we'll have the consulting engineer's report. That will not be Allen and Majors due to a conflict. Okay, so we will not schedule that public hearing until such time as the application is complete and we receive notice from the planning office that,
Al, I got a question on that.
okay,
There's two parties involved in that one application, am I correct?
I don't know, I haven't seen the
Springs?
application.
No,
Correct.
isn't one of, aren't we in litigation with one of them now?
I haven't seen the application, so I can't answer that question.
Yes.
So how can we handle that?
It's
Or how do
a
we go about?
different project in a different area of town. It has nothing to do with the application.
Individual?
Correct. It's a different application, different parcel.
Yes, is that legal?
Yeah, they have the right to bring any project they want in front of the board. It's illegal for you guys to consider
Well,
the other application in regards to the current application in front of you. But
Okay. I just had to ask that question, to keep it clear in my mind, because
Okay, and just one more note, Zero Maple Springs does not add to the count of projects because it's already on our list. It's, they filed a subdivision for zoning protection, so it was already being counted in our total of 26 projects. Okay. The next item, we have 5 or 6 solar bonds that have expired. We'll take the first batch. Clearway purchased 4 projects from Borrego. Project designated 1918 77 Farm to Market Road, 2118 160 Tohonet Road, 0219 299 Farm to Market Road, and 19-2071 Charlotte Furnace Road. In the fall of last year, or actually in the spring of last year, we sent demand letters to them saying we needed to renegotiate the bonds as we're allowed in the conditions of approval. Clearway has been very responsive, very cooperative within the scope of being an adversary. And we've met with them a couple of times. We put forth that we wanted to establish a standard for decommissioning based on the NREL document whereby we developed a, let me get my note, a criteria that said basically $386 per kilowatt hour for solar panels DC and $50 per megawatt for batteries for decommissioning to establish a bond amount. Hang on, I'm trying to get my note here. And they pushed back on that. So I presented an alternative approach. I can't find my notes, so when I take a break, I'll look for it. I provided an alternative approach, which a local town engineer helped put together based on using a cost scheduler. It was basically a 15-page spreadsheet with line item detail, and that using that approach, the amounts were comparable. So we offered that as an alternative. We discussed it as a board, said we would consider that depending on how the applicant responds. So they contracted with TRC, an engineering firm, to produce 4 decommissioning estimates, which I've sent to you for review, and we're going to discuss that tonight. I can tell you, why can't I find my notes? I'm looking at just one thing here. Anyway, the NREL quote was probably 2 to 3 times higher than the estimate that they came back with from their engineering firm, and my observation was that the details of their engineering estimates, oh, here they are, that's what I was looking for, were nowhere near as detailed. It was basically the same high-level decommissioning estimates, which we've seen in the past. I can go through, if we want, the rationale that we built for not using that, which is they're not comparable across projects. They're not detailed enough. We can't really tell what's in there. So I'm opening it for discussion. I do have a list of my comments on beyond that, but I'm open to listening to discussion. Any comment or question from the board?
Yeah, I think that the detailed cost estimate by a professional cost estimator, and I think it would be nice to see some credentials from the cost estimator at the time that they submit the cost estimate.
This wasn't done by a cost estimator at the level. These were just high level.
Right, which I think is problematic that it is high level.
But it was stamped by the engineering firm. They
Yeah.
did
Yeah,
stamp.
which
the-
is,
Sure.
that qualifies in my mind.
But it was not at the detailed level.
Oh, the one that they submitted
Yeah,
was not at the
right.
detail
Oh,
level?
you have copy. You didn't
Yeah.
get a chance to see it.
I saw it. But I do think it was, you're
did
this
see
far
that.
apart
Yes.
versus all the work that we did in good faith. And
So I did
I
a
think it needs some more discussion.
quick calculation
Yeah.
for 299 farm to market. Now, the values I have are,
So is this based on the NREL numbers?
yeah, I'll give you both numbers.
Yeah.
I only have AC for the panels. I use that as assuming the DC was similar. So for 299 Farm to Market Road, using $368,000 per megawatt, it would be $1,104,000 to decommission the solar panels. And by the way, there are 3 very large battery storage systems already in place. So they have a 5.18 megawatt battery storage system. Decommissioning cost for that would be $259,000 for $1,362,000, using the NREL back of the envelope calculation. Their proposal was $397,000. So a big gap there.
Yep.
For 160 Tohonet, using the same methodology, by the way, 160 Tohonet has a 7 megawatt battery system installed. It would be $2,184,200. I'll give,
Yeah, no.
I didn't send copies, I did this morning. So their proposal was $650 versus the $2,000,001. For 77 Farm to Market Road, another 5 megawatt solar project with 4.8 megawatts on battery storage, it was $2,084,000 versus the decommissioning estimate from them at $595. And then Charlotte Charlotte Furnace, 71 Charlotte Furnace, a very small solar farm, 1 megawatt in solar, so it didn't even really meet the new standard for a large-scale ground-mounted, $368,000. They have a 5 megawatt battery system attached to that. That is clearly not being charged by the solar. It's taking energy off the grid and arbitrage.
Yeah.
But our bylaws at the time didn't discuss or deal with that. So our estimate would be $638,000 to decommission. Theirs was $281.
So the 3 bigger ones are at like 25% of what.
Right.
Yes,
real
they're
estate.
all in that range.
Yeah,
And 50%
Seems like that-
for the smaller one.
Yeah.
like that was the target, to get 25%.
The other, so a couple of notes. One, their estimates did not include the uplift, which the current bylaw requires. I don't remember, we have to go back and look at the version of the, did we establish what version of the bylaws they were operating under? They were older, so I'm not sure what we're still trying to establish that. But it doesn't include the uplift for risk and contingency that we have today. In the 2019 version of the bylaws, which some of our solar projects are using, it's 125%, and the current version of the bylaws is 200%, is the uplift. Also, it didn't have a COLA escalator in there for cost of living adjustments, which the current bylaw has, and the 2019 version of the bylaw has. So those two factors were not included. So, Josh, you said you were going to ponder this over the weekend?
Yeah, and I looked at, I think thankfully I looked at one that you did, and I looked at 77 Farm to Market. I came to the same assumption you did. It was low compared to the NREL, and it was even lower compared to where I think the actual number should be. So I guess the question moving forward is, how do we get a more accurate number? The way that we understand it now, the 53G funds that have been established through the town, we really can't connect them to Clearway as an owner. So we can't use those funds to have a peer review of the TRC figures. The documents that we have obtained to kind of review against, the individual that put those together said he wouldn't be interested in reviewing anymore. So I think what we do now is we either take it back to them and ask them to give us a more detailed breakdown from TRC, maybe give them a list of parameters to say, hey, this is how we
I
would like
gave
to-"
them that spreadsheet and said, this is what this is the detail we're looking for.
So then maybe we bring it back to them and, imply that the detail we requested was not given
So-
to us. Or we ask
With an
them to-
explanation of why.
Right.
Yeah.
Or we give them the chance to open a 53G and a W9, and we find someone to estimate what the actual cost should be.
Right. Okay.
Makes sense.
So there's plenty of other things that weren't in there. For example, they specifically, Ken had some suggestions about vegetation and berms. They did not have a line item for removing the conduit. In fact, they specifically said they weren't going to disrupt the ground, which means they're not removing the conduit. That's a problem, I think. The good news is, while they did include salvage value in their estimate, they acknowledged that we're not considering salvage value in terms of protecting the town. So I could work with Josh and Ken and draft a high-level document saying, thank you very much for your response. Here are some comments and observations. One, there's a big gap in the value. Here are some things that we can't see in your estimate. For example, removing the conduit. And it's not as detailed as we would like. So we could thank them very much and ask to continue working with them, or we could accept this bond value and move forward. It's really just an insurance policy for the town. It's not I don't, I can't get a firm statement from the town administrator on how far he wants to press this. There isn't any position from the town on what bond level they want to establish. So this is really us pushing it.
I think your suggestion is a good one, Carl, politely going back to them and saying, we need more detail, just what you said, Josh. I think another round of discussions, I would encourage us to do that.
Okay. I mean, they've been very, I mean, they were a
Yeah.
little adversarial at the meeting, but that was the lawyer.
We've made some progress.
That
but-
was the lawyer speaking.
Yeah,
so,
right.
I think they were very accommodating to work with us, and
And it was in all a pleasant interaction, and they did get back to us. They didn't really move anywhere, but
we could also think of this as a or possibility or an and possibility where we say, hey, we would like you to go back to TRC, get us a more detailed list, and set up a 53G so we can have.
and we'll
someone-
hire a cost scheduler
Right.
to do
Right,
this.
and then at least if TRC comes back and they're still, maybe they don't move very much, maybe we have a position to move in then instead
Right.
of kind of expanding the timeline.
All right.
But-
Okay, so I'll work with the planning office, and we'll respond very politely and thank them for the response and say they didn't really give us what we were looking for, and here's the gap.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you. All right, so there were one other, which I haven't been able to determine, projects that did not respond. One for sure. So let's talk about 2616, which is 21 Squirrel Island Road. We know for sure that's a project whose bond expired. They did not respond to the demand letter. We voted and reviewed with town council to request a cease and desist to be issued on the project. Where do we stand on that?
We haven't seen a cease and desist as of today.
Did we request Mr. Turner to send the cease and desist?
I don't think we have, not yet.
Okay.
But if you would like to make that action tonight, I can.
Well, we've already voted on that, and we did get town council's approval to take that action. So, yeah, let's move on that, and let Paul give his feedback. I mean, he certainly has the opportunity to weigh in, and we'll see what kind of interest that stirs if we give them a cease and desist. All right, now, the other one is a project that is on our solar project list, but where is my list of solar projects? Okay. It's unclear. It's labeled as 160 Tohonet on the solar project list. And it's line item 17, Ken, on your spreadsheet. It's map and lot 111 SA. It is different than the 160 Tohonet that Clearway says they own. They specifically say this is not their project. It's listed on our spreadsheet as being built, but I haven't been able to track down this project. And Josh, did we send a demand letter to this project back in April?
See, I don't think we did.
We need to continue to try and track this down. This is listed as an active solar project, and it's listed as a Borrego Systems solar project, which did not get purchased by Clearway
They say this is operational?
on our spreadsheet.
I don't think it is.
The Bible that I've been using is this spreadsheet. Line item 17, Borrego, map 111, lot SA, started in 2017. It's a 33-acre project, was project number 23-18.
2017, you said?
And it says it was built. And the bond expired in 2022.
See, my problem when I look at decisions that have been written by the planning office is I have a 21-18 that is a 160 Tyhonet Road project.
Which is Clearway says
Clearway.
that's our project.
Yep, and then I have a 23-18 decision that is
Borrego at
a
160.
minor modification.
Okay,
And they're both
so,
saying built.
but it's listed as two different solar installations, and it's
Which it may not be.
it's a completely different size than the other project. So again, when we talk to the citizens about how many projects, how many acres, this is the guide, and I'm struggling to use it.
The reason I made my comment, Carl, is if you go through Makepeace Village, they've erected a large sign that says 160 Tyhonet Road. There's nothing there. I walk there often. I'm just telling what I saw.
Yes, I'm trying to, so what I bring this up is an issue with our records,
Yep.
and particularly if we're going to go to town meeting and request a change and update the solar bylaws, we should be able to present to the citizens a clear understanding of our current state. So I'd like to continue to work with the planning office on figuring out, there's other projects on here I can't find either.
I think this project ties in with the one we visited that cold day, the North Wareham project, which connects to the one they already have up Maple Springs. That's going to be one long system when it's done. I think this is,
Our bylaw actually prohibits that. Our bylaw prohibits breaking projects.
I'm just telling you what's there.
Breaking
what's
them into
supposed to be
smaller
there.
pieces, breaking them into smaller pieces in order to circumvent the size maximum.
Right. There is a system that exists there now. The system that we looked at, we did that cold day, it runs into that system, Carl.
Thank you. I want to get our record straight, so when I talk to
I agree.
the citizens, when we vote, I want to know what the hell I'm talking about.
I agree 100%. I saw that, and I've driven by it, walked by it, it's not there.
So Josh, what can we do to try and straighten up this list so that, particularly for town meeting, when we get questions, we can talk about total acreage, we can talk about total number of projects.
Yeah, just going based off the information I have, it looks like 2018 is an approval for a minor modification.
Okay, but I
So-
think in the past, you and I sat with Sonia, and she had it filed under something else in her record keeping.
It looks like there's some inconsistencies with the record.
There should be a 53G account for this. There should be lots of ways to tick and tie this.
Sure.
Not to mention, look at the Registry of Deeds to see if
Yeah,
it was recorded.
yeah. Now, one of the other problems we have is that subdivision plans have been filed, and all the map and lot references have changed. And not all, but a lot of map and lot references have changed, particularly for the Borrego projects. And the clerk's office doesn't update their records when map and lot number records change.
Impossible. Why is that? How's it possible?
What's impossible?
Changing lots in map number.
Yes, that's what happened. When you do a subdivision, the map and lot references all change for the property.
Right.
How do we keep track?
That's why we hire title experts and lawyers, and which we don't have access to.
I can definitely look at the title.
I'm not even sure the map and lot reference is right, Julie. But that's the
Well,
map and lot.
I can run title. I mean, I can do that.
Yeah, but you need to,
Right,
John Schultz, FaceTime video.
so,
all right, so we
Anyway.
need to, what I'm saying is,
that's just one of many ways to
Right.
try to figure
right,
this
so
out.
Squirrel Island, we're going to pursue the cease and desist to see if we at least get an acknowledgement. And then we've got to track down this, this project. And we should reconcile, we should audit this list to make sure that when we go to town meeting, we have a complete record. And we can talk about that in a minute, because that's the next item on the agenda. Not the next item. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is really just a zoning ZBA project for a 40B housing development, and I didn't know if we wanted to make any comment. I've reviewed this project. They came to the Affordable Housing Trust looking for money. They've gone to CPC for funds. They said they went to CPC for funds, I believe. Is there any comment we want to make on this to the ZBA? I don't really have any comment,
I
but
looked at it, I reviewed it, I don't really have any comments.
it's a small
40B.
40B.
Yeah.
Mike, anything, you know more about these things than the rest of us, these properties and...
Is that the one in West Wareham?
It's at the back of the
Back
housing.
of Cranberry Manor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 40 units, one bedroom, 55 and over.
Yep,
Yes.
that's what it is, yep.
4 buildings there now.
Yeah.
And they're gonna shoehorn them in, right in the back.
Any comment, any concerns?
Oh, cut more
I mean, I
trees,
looked at
that's
the
all.
plan, and the plan from an affordable housing perspective made sense. I didn't count parking and access and any of that when we did the review.
It's gonna be elderly, so you're not gonna have
Tons
a
of
big
cars.
concentration of cars.
Okay, so our action is to not send in any comment to the ZBA.
Go for it. Old people who live someplace too.
Yep, yes, we do.
Is there public
Guys are all
transportation
babies.
to it? If the cars are limited, is there public transportation?
Oh, Gatra
school
floats
children.
back and forth through there.
Yeah. Gatra's pretty fluid, it
Yeah,
seems.
Gatcher's not a bad system.
And pretty fluid.
Yeah.
Their route.
Yeah, they'll go anywhere.
Well, they're gonna be in West Wareham anyway, because supposedly they purchased the land across from Vels.
Oh, they did?
That's where they're going eventually. That's gonna be their home office eventually.
Great.
Leaving Deacon's.
Yeah, no, yeah,
That's
Deacon's,
temporary.
yeah, Deacon's is our community center. That's
Yeah,
only temporary,
It's
sure.
temporary, yeah.
All right, the next item. Sam, Josh, we have been talking about 53G accounts for a while. Josh put together, one of the things I was looking for was somebody from the town to take ownership. Josh made a recommendation.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks, Josh.
Do you have any, I didn't reconcile it with your list.
No, I don't have any comments except one question, Josh. Going forward, who's going to be in charge of this?
Oh, great. Thanks.
No,
Go
no.
ahead.
I'm looking for somebody else to be in charge of it. You got too much on your plate.
No,
I mean, I continue
sprinkle
doing...
it in here and there. I think moving forward, maybe I think this is a big list. I think there's 21 accounts on it. I think we start looking individually, seeing if these things are ready to close out, if there's enough funds for an actual site inspection to be done, to see if they were built in the manner that they were supposed to be constructed.
Yeah,
I think this is a big chunk, and moving forward, we look at them maybe 2 or 3 at a time.
so when you did that, did you, or did anybody go back and see if the planning board actually voted to close and accept these projects?
There's, in 2016, the community made a valiant effort and closed them out, voted, and they're still on the list.
Wait,
And then...
no, my question is, so the planning board voted in 2016 to close a bunch of them?
Yep.
Do we have that record so we can point to that? Because Judy Lozano is going to look for that. Where were these,
Whether she does or not, you're making the recommendation in the vote now.
No, well, hang on. Maybe you answered not the question I asked.
Okay.
Were these projects closed? Not the 53G accounts. Were the projects properly closed? Have the records been filed with the clerk? Are the registry records all correct? Because we need 53G funds to make sure all that work gets done. Do we know if the clerk ever got the notice that we were supposed to get? Did the registry records all get updated, or we're just wiping the slate clean?
Oh, I can't speak for the ones that were already voted to be closed out.
Do we know that they were closed? Not the 53G accounts. Do we know the projects were closed and the records?
Well, okay, so what I would say is I would assume they were closed if they were issued a certificate of occupancy. So if these projects are complete with people living in them, then I would say that they're closed.
Whether we got all of the tick and tie, did we get the as-bills? Did we get the filing copies of the registry?
We would have to look at the conditions of approval, but I would say your requirements of as-built have been more fairly recent than I would say.
But the requirement for a copy of the filing at the registry of deeds.
should
And the
happen
filing.
before the project even starts.
No, it can't happen before the building starts.
Right.
Yeah, not before yeah.
Right. So it's a second layer of research we could do. I would
The answer is, you're telling me it hasn't been done, or you haven't done the research.
Correct. And
That was my question.
And I would say even the accounts that we've presented before you tonight lack the funds for a peer review to be done, even if we found that it wasn't so.
Okay.
And some of them are just, there's no money there, it's zero.
Right.
Okay, so are you looking for us to make a motion based on your recommendation?
Correct.
So if we could get a motion worded that calls into Josh's recommendation in the wording of the motion, and you could read the projects into the record. What are we going to do, Josh? What action are we taking to close the 53G accounts? Is that what we're doing?
Correct. And you don't have to go individually, you can do it based off the memo that I supplied to the planning board.
Fine.
You don't have to do them individually.
And what was the date in the document of the letter? January 31st. So the January 31st recommendation from the land use coordinator recommending that 21 53G accounts be closed. So for the record, Patty, we want that document referenced in our minutes.
You have this.
I got a copy of that, yes. So
Make that motion. All 23 be closed.
23 or 21?
21?
21,
21 be closed.
correct? Josh, 21, I
21
think.
sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me pull up in the menu, the memo.
That's what you'd said.
So the motion by Sam Corbett is, upon the recommendation of the land use coordinator in a memo dated January 31st, 2025, you move that we close the 21 53G accounts.
Correct.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Julie Moran. All in favor? No. Mr. Baptiste says no?
No.
Jane Gleason, aye.
Julie Moran, aye.
Sam Corbett, aye.
And the chair votes no. So it passes by 3-0.
Correct.
Them 53G accounts been bouncing around for years.
That's why I started this whole project.
I understand.
What's
This is not,
involved in this 10 years ago, well, quite a while ago, when we were trying to clean these up? Where does that stand there? Just go and say carte blanche, let them go. To get them off the books, I don't think that's the way to go.
well, we voted and.
Okay, I'm just,
And Mr. Foster wants to do this, so
Can I
he's,
also ask, so we aren't here 5 years from now, Josh, do you feel confident there is now a process for existing 53G accounts, 53G G accounts besides the 21, where there is a process, there's communication, they are notified, the funds are reconciled? Do we feel that there is a process that the planning office uses to make sure we aren't here 5 years from now with this situation?
A process, no.
There's been no change to the process. This is just,
So,
that was one of the reasons I voted no. Nothing
Yes.
is going to be
So-
any different. I mean, we're cleaning the records.
I will
up
make
there.
a request on behalf of the planning board that there be a process created, because it is, it's unfortunate, to say the least.
Kicking this down the road to some
Yeah.
future board who's going to struggle with the same problem is unfortunate.
Well, there's
But-
a solution to that, is we get a guy like Elon Musk in here, come in with his goons, and they'll figure it out tomorrow.
Right.
You know,
Let's stay off. Okay.
So,
Call him up, please,
Yeah.
please do. Happy to have
like
him
I
in the
said,
office.
53 inch chunks, way back, there was a problem, they fell between the cracks. We thought we had money there, we went, it wasn't money there. Then they tried to tighten up the system so they could track it, and all of a sudden, it's falling between the cracks again. We can't keep on sweeping the stuff under the carpet.
yeah,
You know, Sam, I know it's been frustrating for you for the last 5 years. And it's like a stone in your shoe, you know?
The thing is, a lot of these have zero balances.
Right.
They're still on the list. A lot of these have been closed and voted on by prior boards, and they're still there. There are items on there that Ken has promised me everything's done, and they haven't been voted on, except Ken has said, these are okay, but we haven't voted on them yet. And I would like to keep moving forward with this. I agree with you 100%, and I've been talking about it for years. That's why I jumped in and said, take the easy stuff first. The zeros, the ones that have already been approved, those, get rid of them. Get them off the list and try to move forward with the projects, the system. We have none.
well,
Yeah, one guy I talked to says, I have to get it from this person. Another person says, I get it from that person. It's all over the place.
Okay, we voted, we're done.
Okay,
The
sorry.
process has not been improved. It's going to continue to be a thorn. We will act as and when the planning office makes a recommendation.
Yep.
Thank you, Ms. Moran, for your request for a process improvement. Perhaps next year we can write a grant for that. Okay, next item on the agenda. This is, Ken, are you on the
Yes, I am.
Great. So this is just an informational update. The project at, I didn't write it down. It's the subdivision, Hidden Trails. Had to go for a MIPA review, which was triggered. We're not involved in the MIPA process, but I thought it would be interesting to just get an update on the process and what's going to happen. We have no role in this item. No
But the-
dog in this hunt,
Yeah.
horse in this race.
right, but the hearing's tomorrow
Yeah,
at 1 o'clock.
yeah. If people want to listen, I think you can listen in. So Ken, inform us.
Yes, this is a state permit, the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, that requires an ENF, an environmental notification form, followed by an environmental impact report, an EIR, when a project meets certain thresholds of the state law. And there are a variety of different thresholds, such as the amount of pavement, the amount of clearing of trees, the amount of new runway made, the amount of water being used or processed. So there's a variety of thresholds that they have within the state law. Now, the way it works is that a proponent of a project that meets one of these thresholds has to first file an ENF, environmental notification form, and get a review and determine whether or not or what scope will be of the EIR, the environmental report. this process is followed on a regular basis by different projects. And the state has a public comment period where people can respond to the information that's prepared and submitted in the ENF and the EIR as they may come along. This is a project that's already been approved by the planning board. It provides 50% open space. It meets all the criteria of the town, and that's the reason why the planning board approved it. I think that this process of comment, you can certainly have your say, or what you can do is entrust in your land use coordinator or the planning office to comment on the application that just in that fact that the project meets all the criteria of the town, and so was approved by the planning board.
Okay, so what generally happens? Would they issue additional conditions? What could happen? What could be the results of this review?
The result of this review is that depending on where it goes, they could say that there's enough information now that they don't need to take it any further, and write a letter saying that the secretary of the MEF office would write a letter and say that the project can proceed as proposed, that the information is satisfactory. In the case where something is horribly wrong with the project, being facetious there, that there's something that's found that requires more information, then the scope of the letter is one where the state requires an environmental impact report that follows that revised scope of work. When the information that the applicant has satisfied the state, then the state writes a certificate that allows the project to proceed.
So if I remember correctly from this, they already did an environmental impact report to submit to us, right? Even though they didn't need it.
That's right. As part of the site plan review function, there's an environmental impact report that's submitted.
They've already done that, so one would expect that they're ready to provide that to the state.
It could do.
You broke up. Ken?
You hear me now?
Yes.
What was the question?
Oh, I said that they can then, they're prepared to submit that to the state should it be required, then they're already ahead.
Oh, yeah, they could do that. There's the environmental notification form is one where it goes through a list of questions that covers all the environmental media, and it's fairly comprehensive in its scope, so that it mirrors what we asked for in the EIR, the site plan review.
Yeah. Great. Any questions? It was just an informational.
Yep.
Ken, what do you think the timeline is for next step? I know the hearings is set, I think the comment period closes like the 24th or something. How far, is it a 6-month wait period? I just don't know how Massachusetts handles that.
Oh, no, it's a much faster turnaround than that.
Okay.
I think 90 days is what they're permitted.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we're doing good. Moving on to the last item on the agenda, which is the updates to the zoning bylaws. Now, before we go into this, I want to make an announcement, and we need to take an action. At our last meeting, we voted to hold a public hearing on the two zoning bylaws, the accessory dwelling units and the solar bylaw. Unfortunately, that public hearing was not noticed, so we will not be able to hold a public hearing on February 24th. Legally, we cannot hold a public hearing. So does the planning office have an idea when we should reschedule this? And I'll take a vote on that date.
March 10th.
Okay, so we're gonna get our ducks in a row and get it noticed for March 10th.
That's correct.
Okay, so I am looking for a motion to reschedule the public hearing for the two zoning bylaw updates to be presented at Springtown meeting from February 24th to March 10th.
So moved.
Motion by Sam Corbett,
Second.
second by Jane Gleason. All in favor?
Nice Baptiste, aye.
Jane Gleason, aye.
Julie Moran, aye.
Sam Corbett, aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, so that being said, at the next two meetings, or tonight and the 24th, I've asked that the planning office give us regular updates on the progress. So, Mr. Farady, if you want to talk about the two bylaws,
Yeah, which way do we want to go first, solar or ADU?
your choice.
Okay. I got the solar pulled up, and I'll share my screen for that.
Okay, and I have comments and recommendations, although the bylaw language isn't there. There's a whole bunch of suggestions I have for what we need to do to make it clear.
So as everyone will recall, yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, John. Okay, so if everyone will recall, at our special meeting held in January, I presented this figure. This figure, any area in green shows a site where a solar field can be built by site plan review with special permit, currently under the zoning bylaws.
Would it be possible to show a map following this where all the current either approved or built projects are?
So I have a map of currently constructed, so meaning I could see them on the map. And that is these red areas here, and I'll
Okay.
make them a little brighter.
And how many dots do we have there? Can we? No, I'm
No,
just,
it's a fair question. Let me,
make them brighter and I'll walk over and count them.
And Josh, would it be your thought, you present this, you do that next step, overlay of the red, and then continue to, I'm thinking about the meeting where we had out on an easel, but I think if we could bring this up during the meeting, I think this would be most effective and informative for folks.
Two.
yeah, I think it's,
19 is the number we've been
That's what we got.
using.
Yeah, it's 19.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, now, I've got 19 built. So we should reconcile that with our list.
sure.
By the way, the 19 built includes this Phantom 160.
I don't think it exists.
Josh, can you tell us what the green areas, I know that that's where solar's allowed. How was that arrived at?
It's all R160.
So your current zoning bylaw says that large-scale ground-mounted solar can be placed within the R130 district, the R60 district,
Yeah, I said 160.
CS, CG, CP, and CR districts.
So those are all those districts.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
And just so I could turn those districts off to, if the consensus is that you want to leave it in a certain district, we can kind of play and fool around with that.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I could also turn on your industrial district to show where that's located. But for right now, what I had done is we looked at potential areas where it might make sense to allow solar installations to be sited. And the business development overlay district that we've already identified as an overlay district seemed to make sense. This area has the transmission lines that run through the northern portion of it. So it'd still allow for interconnect with the grid. And in terms of, you know, the best way to, I would say, quickly get this in front of the town, it's just redefining the use of the overlay district. It's not trying to create a new overlay district. It's not trying to define a new area. I would also mention that the BDOD was established as a district for development. And since its inception of that, we have heard from the main proponent of that land that they're no longer looking to develop in that area, and they would transition to solar anyway. So their business model says that we have this land and we're probably going to put solar in it regardless.
And today they can.
And today they can,
And by the way, with most of their zoning, they've got subdivision zoning freeze. They can pretty much build in this area, no matter what we change.
largely correct. So that's
I mean,
what
they've been
was,
proactively managing it. They filed subdivision plans to protect their zoning rights. They're actively managing their rights, and, which is what they do.
Carl, I got a question on that one. Why are they mining it?
That, I don't have a question. I can't answer that question.
Most parts of the state, you look, the solar fields take the topography of the land, okay? Here in Wareham, we mine everything, well, we don't. They mine everything down. Why? Is that something we can put in the bylaws?
There are plenty of things in the bylaws about sand mining. They're not zoning or planning board issues, they're select board issues.
Oh, that's even worse. That's just as bad as the federal government.
And it is being worked on.
yeah, I would say we have
Oh.
a earth removal bylaw currently, and I think one of the exemptions to that bylaw is if you have an approved subdivision plan.
Oh, really? That I didn't
But
know.
you're supposed to
believe
have a
so.
permit to remove over so much material,
Right.
not carte blanche. How can you go on a site subdivision
I-
and take out 500,000 cubic yards of soil? 500,000's a lot.
Yeah, and
That's a lot of dirt.
I would also say that a lot of these places use their agricultural exemption to
That's
do these
bullshit.
activities.
No one
And,
ever
and, and I,
uses seed in the box.
I appreciate your
I'm sorry.
concern. No, you're absolutely right. One of the things we need to be, well, we need to decide, but my recommendation is, and we've had this problem all along, we're trying to make improvements to our ability to manage solar. And it keeps getting confused, or not confused, conflated with this other issue, which we can't regulate. And I recognize in a moment. And we need to, if we want to move forward on solar regulations and battery regulations, if we conflate it with other land use issues, my fear is that we won't make progress on the solar. That's my fear.
Well, shut it all down.
We can't. That isn't going to work. But we can try. The state won't let us do that.
Well, here we go again. The state's telling us what to do, the federal government tells us what to do, and our selectmen do what they want to do. So where do we stand? We're citizens. We're the ones that's paying the tab.
Okay, I merely made my
You got me
statement.
in a soapbox now, so.
If we conflate land use issues, it becomes more difficult to move forward on some aspects, like solar and battery. That's my position. This is not public, but we can take comment from the citizens. Ms. Quirk, do you want to approach? Do you want to make a comment? I don't want to get into a debate, and this isn't the public hearing.
I'm actually approaching as a member of the Select Board. The Select Board is in the process of looking at our earth removal bylaw, and it's going to come for a public hearing before the Select Board and the Bylaw Review Committee, I think on February 25th. And we're seeking to address a situation where the Wareham Town bylaw has lagged behind other towns in its specificity and its regulation of certain earth removal activities. And if you have comments, love to hear them.
Because this has been, as you know, an ongoing thing for years.
So-
Years. The question's been asked for years, and it's always been swept under the carpet. I appreciate your diligence on this, and whatever support I can give you, I'm right behind you.
Great. I have a question perhaps for Ms. Quirk or perhaps for the planning. Zoning bylaws, the landowner can be protected from changes to zoning bylaws by filing an A&R, by filing a subdivision plan to protect, they get zoning freeze protection. Is there a protection for changes to town bylaws? Is there a similar process to protect your land from a change like this?
I don't know that there is. Well, I guess it would depend on the activity.
But we're talking, if we make a change to the land, if we take make a change to the excavation, land mining, that's not a zoning bylaw, although it is a land use. I'm not sure why it's not a zoning bylaw, but it's a land use bylaw. Is it protected through the subdivision or A&R or other zoning freeze process? I think it's something we should know, because citizens will freak out when they find that Makepeace has already protected all their land, and we've made this change, which I laud, but it doesn't apply to them.
I don't think it's going to work that way in this circumstance. What the planning board has with the various zoning protections that have arisen and aren't changed when the bylaws change, that is not what is going to be the case with earth removal.
That was my
That's
question.
an ongoing activity.
Right.
And if you, and Julie can correct me if I'm
No,
wrong, because she's not only a Massachusetts lawyer, but a land use lawyer. I think if you require a permit for certain activities, that will be required as of the time when permits are required.
But that
Agreed.
doesn't apply for special permits, in permits that come to us, building permits. Zoning freezes supersede permits. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I just
I
don't
mean,
know.
yeah, I think we should consult with Attorney Bowen, but I see this as a very different type of license, if you will. We're calling it a permit, but it's really more a license. I just don't see that
I raised the
works.
question,
Yeah,
and
I think
we
it's a
should
good
be-
question, and I
We should be
think,
prepared to understand.
yeah, and I think we need to understand in advance of the hearing, but I don't see it. It's very different approaching the town for permission to do something on your land. I think this is more, frankly, a prohibition, restriction, limitation on what you can do with your land. I just see this as quite different than a permit, seeking a permit from either the Zoning Board of Appeals or the Planning Board. But certainly, we should consult with Rich Bowen.
That's why
Because
I
that would
raised the
be a
question.
question, you're right.
'Cause to me,
So-
it's the same as every other land use.
Well, I think
Can I
we
make
need
a recommendation?
to- Yeah.
What is, as Mike said many times,
All right.
it's agricultural use, so they're exempt. What if we had a permit required with no cost for that use, at least you'd know what was happening.
Can I, that's an appropriate, we're talking about zoning bylaws tonight.
Okay.
And I appreciate your comment, but we need to focus back on what the zoning, or the planning board can deal with. I appreciate the update. I appreciate the concern. This has been a big concern in the town. This is,
Got to be careful, Carl, because they're all related. You know, they're all related.
I understand your comment. We cannot regulate, under the current laws, earth removal.
Should be able to.
You can.
The planning board does not, there's no authority I could find anywhere in either the zoning bylaws or town bylaws that gives either the ZBA or the planning board authority to regulate earth removal. That has been reserved by the select board.
That's correct.
Agreed.
And that's why I don't want to conflate things we can control with things that are outside our control.
I apologize, Carl, for disrupting
No,
No.
no.
train of thought, but I'm not.
Good point,
gonna give
it's,
it up.
yeah, important.
Go to the 25th meeting.
I got it
Speak
written down right
passionately.
here, big letters.
Yep.
They'll be glad to see
And
me,
that's
I'm
the
sure.
appropriate place to raise that issue.
So let me bring us back to town meeting, solar bylaw.
Yes.
Solar zoning.
Thank you, Sherry.
There was an interest in bringing this BDOD and expanding it into the industrial zone, and I'll add that on the map here now. My question to the planning board, and I guess a general question, is, you know, we have 19 built projects, solar, in town. You know, I'll put on the map how many of them have been put into that industrial zone as well. Hold on, I just want to make sure that we are not losing them under the opacity. So we have 2 solar projects that have been built in that industrial zone, but arguably those 2 solar projects were not on industrial developed. Those 2 lots were undeveloped at the time of their application. And then I would say for the other 17 projects, they have all been sited on undeveloped parcels of land.
So my other request then is, there's 19, there's probably 7 more projects that are permitted but not built. We should show those if we can. So 0 Route 25 isn't up there. The 2 New Leaf projects aren't up there. Fearing Hill is not up there. 370 County Road. And I understand that 4 of those projects are under dispute, but we should be able to show those if we could.
Maybe with a different color or
color. Yeah, they're-
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're-
some
They're
contrast.
not built, but
Yeah. Well, because in speaking with folks at the town meeting, I think there were many who were quite surprised how many projects there actually were, either in the pipeline, existing, just the scope of it. So I think that would be helpful, Josh, if we could help people understand where we are with scope.
Sure, and just very quickly, these ones you see in blue identify 2 of those projects. The southern ones are your 370 County Road projects, and the northern one is Fearing Hill. I
and
can try
then
to,
0 Route 25 would be off the map to the right.
yeah, that's, it's over by our municipal maintenance department.
Yeah.
To the-
And
so
Rocky,
that would-
Rocky
Zero-
Maple Solar would be just,
That's on the Carver-Wareham line.
yeah.
That would be somewhere up in this area.
And then the New Leaf ones would also be outside that red district as well.
Yeah, so Rocky Maple would be somewhere over here, I believe. And,
And Linda Rentas project is over there somewhere.
Yep.
that's correct.
So there's there's 6 or 7 more that have
And again, on undeveloped property. So, you know, I think putting or citing it in your industrial zone makes sense. I just see the cost of a solar project starting up in that zone is not prohibitive to the solar companies, so you won't see it anyway. I think the cost of entry is too high.
Right. So the objective is to constrain, because there's a ton of other land, if you put the green map up, for
Yep.
projects to come in, that we're trying to prevent that from happening.
Correct. And even, you know, that's the majority of it, I would say, and there's a little more. CR, CS, CG. So I'd say that's largely the majority of where solar could be sited, is those green areas. And there's a lot of undeveloped land in those green areas as
Yeah.
well.
So we're trying to narrow, we've given our fair share, we've got 26 projects out there, we're trying to constrain future projects from sprawl. We're trying to limit solar sprawl.
And I know the planning board understands this point very well. We are not prohibiting the installation of solar on rooftops. We are not prohibiting the installation of solar in parking lots, in a lot of these developed areas.
And anything under 250 megawatts is not fall under this.
Correct.
So, for example, the project at the Gleason Y would not fall under this constraint. Huh?
Kilowatts,
What did I say?
megawatts.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, 250 kilowatts, yeah. Okay.
So I think, you know, I've reached out to a few community members that did have comment on this. I haven't heard their responses yet, but if I get responses, I'll bring them to your next meeting. I would appreciate if you just kept this as a open agenda item.
For next week, yeah. And then on the 24th, we'll have a public hearing.
Yeah.
So if I might, though,
On
I,
the 10th,
On the 10th.
March 10th.
March 10th, I'm sorry. I have a list of items that I'd like for you to put into your consideration and for completeness. So if we move forward with the Business Development Overlay District, the definition of the BDOD in section 220.4 needs to be refined. The use table for large-scale ground-mounted solar and battery energy storage both need to be updated to just show the BDOD. 450.5, this is just, it doesn't say special permit, it should say special permit as well as site plan review. The list of special permit uses need to be updated in the BDOD district. 594.3 needs to be revised because it basically lists a whole set of conditions that you may not want to restrict in this district. We were trying to push it into brownfields and things out. That should be revised. 595.1, paragraphs 3 and 4 need to be reviewed.
Sorry, point what?
This is in the most current version of the bylaws. 595.1, paragraphs 3 and 4 need review.
Okay.
The setbacks need to be reconciled with Article 6. We should just double check that. And just as a note, there are no design standards for the BDOD in Article 7. That's just a big gap in the bylaws. I'm not sure you want to try and fix that. And if possible, you mentioned that our current consultant who's looking at Maple Springs mentioned the need for vaults around BESSs. If we could add a vault requirement in the BESS section of the bylaws with this opportunity to open the bylaws, there is quite a robust standard developing in the state for putting vaults around battery storage. And if we could copy one of those and drop it in, and you said the engineer had, as well as I believe Jared, Sherry had some suggestions. I suggest if we can get that added to our bylaw, that would be a good,
Town of Dennis has a good set, yeah.
yeah. Without, if it makes too many other spider changes, but if we could just drop in a real simple volt requirement without affecting everything else, that would be useful. Those were my inputs. Thank you for your continued work on this, and let me know how I can continue to help.
Yeah, and if anyone from the public has more suggestions, feel free
We've
to
opened
come
that up.
down.
Please send them to the land use coordinator, send them to Josh.
Or come down to my office. My door's always open. Okay, let's, I'll transition to ADUs now. Sometimes I forget that people aren't looking at these regulations as much as I am, so would the board like an overview of the state law, or would you just like to see what we're approaching for town meeting and what I've identified as differences in our bylaw to the state law?
I think in preparation for town meeting, I think we should be prepared to give a broad statement of what the state is requiring us to do. And then as we talk about our bylaw, how it either adds or can't subtract, but it can tighten some of the state rate, or if it makes clear what we want in our town.
Yeah, Josh, is there a way to, and last I checked, which was last week, they never really issued any guidance, did they? They really just issued updates to the code?
So since town meeting, which at town meeting, they had given us very little guidance, they had the draft regulation proposed at our town meeting.
Yep.
They have since finalized the draft regulations that
Correct.
were almost identical to the proposed. They say that they're in the process of creating a model bylaw, but we have not seen anything about that. And after town meeting, I went back to the drawing board and I looked at, I would say a lot of Attorney General letters, I think probably close to 20, of communities that had submitted ADU bylaws to the Attorney General. I read through those, and the overarching theme of those letters was, thanks for submitting this, we approve it as it's written, but come February 2nd, you may be in violation with the state law, and you'll have to address that with your town council. So until we really see an ADU bylaw that's been approved by the AG after February 2nd, which I don't think there are any currently, we won't really know what the AG stance is. I have taken the model that I'm about to present to you guys tonight, and which you received by email. I have taken that and sent it to the AG. So I think in a scramble to realize that they maybe jumped the gun on this one, they've opened up an ability for us to send proposed bylaws and get comments back. As of today, I haven't received comments back on what we had proposed. Hopefully, by your next meeting, I'll receive something, and we can address that. But after hearing feedback at town meeting, and I'll just share my screen again. After hearing feedback at town meeting, we've really kind of dialed our bylaw back to what you have in front of you this evening. So as you recall, at town meeting, we had accessory dwelling units going in front of the ZBA as a site plan review, so not something that they would accept or deny, but something they could condition for approval. We have since taken the site plan review aspect out and just updated the use table to present as a, yes, it's allowed. They would still have to meet all the building department requirements, Board of Health requirements, but now they don't require a site plan review through the Zoning Board of Appeals. I would say our current proposal mimics the state law with the exception of requirements number 2 and requirement number 3. Requirement number 2 is something that we did hear feedback from the public for the rental period of the unit itself. I think the town's main concern, and the reason we want to see this in here, is realizing that in many tight communities within Wareham, parking is a major issue. Onset, we know there's a major parking issue. In a lot of these smaller communities, you're going to see that. So we've kind of left that in to hedge maybe some of the parking interruptions that we may get. And while I think there will be very few and far between instances where someone could actually construct a ADU that has a bigger footprint than a principal structure, just when you start to think about the math of it, you would almost need a primary structure that has 3 floors for the ADU to have a single floor living area that has a larger footprint than the principal structure. Our fear is that it would just kind of look a little wonky on any property. So those are, and sorry, I kind of skipped over the state law, but it made sense in the flow of what I was discussing. So some important information that I think came out of town meeting and some concerns that came out of town meeting. One of the major concerns that we heard at town meeting was that it would be cost prohibitive to an applicant if it were to go for a site plan review, specifically noting in areas like Onset, you have a 300-foot abutter notification requirement, and the cost of notifying those abutters would be extremely detrimental to the project of constructing one of these. When I sit back and I think about that comment specifically, I really think that in places like Onset, you're already gonna have to go in front of the ZBA for one of the dimensional or setback requirements. So I could see that permit being a dual permit of, ADU and variance for one of these setback requirements. So it might be something to look at in the future, but I think for now, we've just taken that site plan review process out. The other big concern that I foresee us having is the definition of a bus station. The guidance we've got from the state is a bus station is a station, or if it's a transportation provider that allows for flag stops, which we've identified as our GATRA system does allow for flag stops, then the entirety of the bus route is considered a bus station. The bus station plays into the definition that these ADUs don't require an additional parking space on the property if they fall within a half mile of the GATRA bus route. We do know that the GATRA bus route has a stop at the pier in Onset, and then it also has a stop at the Canal Bridge and Park in Bourne. So when you think of those two stops, it's easy to imagine that it runs straight through the center of Onset, past Bay Point, and out onto Cranberry Highway. So we foresee that in Onset, where we have an issue with parking already, people parking on the streets, the requirement that we cannot add an additional parking space on these lots is only going to be a greater impact to the community. But regardless, this is where we're at for what the proposal is.
You ready for questions?
Please.
first question I have is, you have continually referenced the Onset, Parkhurst. You never talk about Swiss Beach or Cremisa. Did you do any analysis of the housing down there?
Well, I think the housing down there would be, fall into a lot of the same concerns that we
Yeah,
have.
but you never mention it. So you say, we're worried about Onset. Why aren't you worried about Swift Beach?
I think just for the understanding that everyone understands how tight Onset is.
Well, have you ever been to Swift Beach
Go to Parkwood. Just
or Parkwood
Yeah.
or Cremisa or Pinehurst?
So,
I really,
Or Cremisa.
or Cremisa. When you talk just about Onset, that really rankles for the residents in other parts of town.
okay, your comment is well taken. Yeah, you're right.
Why? Okay,
Swiss Beach,
you're aware of my concern.
Oh, yeah, Swiss Beach, Cremisa, Parkhurst,
All
Pinehurst, they're all
significantly constrained for parking.
very small lots, and if a GATRA bus goes down there, we're not going to have be able to require an additional parking space.
Well, it was a half a mile, so the GATRA bus is probably, because it runs down Swift Beach Road. But, okay, so my next question, and I don't know, for all of these communities, I don't, except maybe Onset, building an ADU in Swiss Beach is going to trigger the FEMA, or not the FEMA, they're going to have to build, so you're going to have a house at ground level and an ADU 18 feet in the air next to it.
Exactly.
If it is a detached ADU, you're correct. It will have to meet the flood zone, the FEMA flood zone standards, and it will
And
be elevated.
if it's attached,
If it's attached, it will probably cost 50% or more of
then
the
the whole unit has to get raised.
the whole residence needs to be raised.
Right. So people should understand that. I don't know what they may be thinking.
Yeah. And, places, and even some structures that fall within the V zone, which is more restrictive than the AE zone, some of these houses, for the AE zone, maybe you add flood vents to the structure and you kind of get away okay. The V zone, under the building standards, require breakaway walls.
Right.
So, yeah, this isn't as simple as plopping a foundation in your backyard, throwing a structure down, and calling it a
Good,
day.
okay, I understand, you understand. I'm not sure
Yeah.
that everybody who is thinking they want to do this understands.
I think that we heard a lot about as of right, as of right. I think we want to make sure people understand what the restrictions on that may be, like FEMA.
As of right has
like-
nothing to do with town regulations or...
Right.
But you kept hearing that all throughout the hearing, so,
And
Because
even,
as of right, words apply probably more to zoning than anything else.
That's right.
The building requirements remain the same.
Yeah,
The FEMA
sideline,
requirements remain
setback.
the same.
Conservation Commission.
Remain the same.
So I think
there-
it's important, Title V.
That as of
Yeah.
right language really applies to zoning.
Right.
End
So
of story.
And I think that's
other-
important to clarify to folks,
The other thing
so they don't
that
get
it
surprised.
applies is sewer
Yeah,
restrictions.
Title V.
and
Because a lot, again, I know a lot about the Swiss Beach community because we have such terrible sewer problems down there. Adding more residents, people, flushing toilets, the sewer system can't handle it.
Porta Johns.
yeah, and I've had, I'll say, small conversations, with our sewer plant and the operations of that. Your new sewer superintendent has done a really good job of patching the system, where they've actually found that fresh water was entering the
Right,
system through
yes.
breaks.
Yep.
So the moratorium of that has been lifted because they've found flow available. And their way of accepting these ADUs is, right now, they, you have a house, they have, I think it's called an EDU, and if you propose to build an ADU, you're gonna be paying an EDU plus one. And I think it's almost a double charge, that
Yeah.
plus one.
See, and I know we're asking this question, and it's unfortunate that more citizens aren't here, but I don't think people who are, wow, this is a great idea, understand all of the ramifications that, because as you said, as of right, I can do this. It says they're not going to stop me.
As of right, yeah,
Yeah.
which is a
You're
real
still going to
danger.
need to get a building permit. You're going to, all of these other, I'm just afraid, I don't,
How do you make that clear in town meeting?
Is there a way to put together a chart?
That's a problem. I sit on the other side,
Yeah.
and I listen to the other people, the comments. And I'll tell you, if you guys were over there, you probably would have got lynched. They didn't know who I was. I was safe. And they get that concept. They can, it says, oh, we can do whatever we want.
Right, right, you're right, Mike.
Way back in the olden days, Swiss Beach, all them cottages had knockout plugs in the floor.
yep, yep.
You get a flood, you knock them out. When the water goes, it goes out, you put them back in. But with the new laws the way they are now,
You can't do
it's
that.
tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, so that's, and
That's built-
again,
that's-
Yeah.
That's,
one of our goals is to
building
improve
code issues that-
communications.
Yeah,
We don't
that's
wanna
right,
have a
educate people.
We
But the
don't want to
people,
have
the
a
people need the
disconnect.
education. And something that I think will clear up a lot of things is everybody's using acronyms all the time. I hate that. You should put what it is in parentheses for the older people like me. You know, what's a BDOT? You know, people ask that question all the time, and it's very confusing. So what you're doing right in the bat, you're intimidating the people when they go there. They feel lost, and all of a sudden he goes, holy shit, what do I do now? Oh, my neighbor said I can do this, and then you got nothing happens. Everybody's a bad guy.
Yeah.
I think that little bit will help quite a bit, and we got to educate the public to let them know we're on their side.
So maybe you don't want to list all of the things you can't do, but you want to make a statement that says, yes, you can do this as of right, but you still have to meet.
Well, I think you need to clarify as of right in what framework.
Right. Zoning versus
There are
other
all kinds- I mean,
requirements, other
there-
codes.
There's a whole array of different organizations or
Right.
authorities that you need to satisfy. There's building code, there's zoning, there's conservation, there's yada, 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 there's FEMA, there's,
Design standards.
so there's this whole
Title V
sea of different,
is a huge issue.
different authorities that you've got to respond to when you're building something like this. And that as of right applies to, I think, one of them.
Just zoning, yeah.
And
You
that's
should
it.
think of the as of right as a use, not as what can be constructed.
Right.
Right, but I think
That's a
people need to-
distinction that very clear to me,
Yeah,
but
but
I
not
don't
to
know.
I
folks.
think people need to be aware that there are all these different authorities that they need to answer to when they build
Right.
something
And
like
it may
this.
be, and with no site plan review, but if it's wetlands, conservation, I mean, maybe it is a chart to give, at least give people, including but not limited to, these are the things that you need to be
I think they
looking
should
at.
come every other week to us and listen and learn.
Yeah. But anyway, I think, not to frighten people away, but again, not to have the
No,
sticker shock
you
when,
educate them, they can make good decisions. You
Yeah.
know, peop-
So I think-
People aren't that bad out there. A lot of us
Right,
are, but
so
some of
I'm going to put it out there that I think we need to figure out how we're going to present this to town meeting.
Right, these are that's what we're really talking about, is suggestions on how to present it at town meeting. Because I listen to people chat at town meeting, and they say things that are like, what?
They can't do that.
There's really a
A lot of misconceptions.
lot of
yeah.
misconceptions.
And if they just read the state law, really leaves the impression, have at it, but
Right.
they need to
It's not-
understand.
It's not accurate.
And these are state laws, too. Concom.
And-
It's not like we're just imposing these additional conditions. It's Title V, same thing.
Sure, and coming from, I guess my stance at town meeting is I'm not really in a position to get in an argument with a resident about maybe the information you're presenting is inaccurate. I tried to do my best to present the information that I had.
Sure.
But
Well, hopefully at the public hearing, we get a better turnout. I appreciate the folks who come, but we should be prepared at least at the public hearing to talk about these things.
Of course. And I'm more than prepared if anyone wants to come down to my office.
As I know. John?
Kathy Pappalardo would like to speak.
Oh, yeah.
You can let her in. I want to know what she wants to talk about.
We may have a scant audience tonight because there's a Wareham Redevelopment Authority workshop, I guess is what it's titled.
Workshop informational thing.
Yeah, going on at the same time.
We scheduled our meeting first.
I know that. Ours is on cycle.
Go ahead, Kathy. Kathy, you there?
Yes, I'm here, Carl. I wanted to just make a suggestion. You're talking about getting the word out to the public. My suggestion for you is get an article or a couple of articles into Wareham Week. Everybody in town picks up that paper. It's a great way to disseminate information.
Are you volunteering to write an article?
No, I'm just making a suggestion for you because I hear what you're saying and everything that you're saying. It's like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that. Not that I'm thinking of doing this, but I'm sure other people have not taken into consideration all of the other requirements. It's just like getting a building permit. As I think Jane said, it's a use you can do, but you still have to go through all of the other
Right.
processes involved with getting this building permit. I'm just suggesting a way to get it out to the public so they do understand. Everybody picks that paper up, that's all.
And I wish I had the time to write articles for Wareham Week. What about adding yes, thank you, it's an excellent suggestion. We have to figure out how to be able to accomplish that. I don't know how. We often have a commentary in our zoning bylaws that says, states the obvious. All other permits such as are still required. You could just write it, then if anybody took the time to read the bylaw, they would at least,
Under state and local law.
yeah, and federal.
Yeah, FEMA.
Although FEMA's gone away, so who knows? Yes, John.
May I interject something?
Would you like to write an article for Wareham?
No, I would not like to write an article. for
John is a
Wareham Week.
resident, yes.
That's a
you're
resident, yes, yes.
I am. Just
State your
to-
name, please.
Jonathan Day, Wareham Media. My recommendation would be possibly putting together a short informational video, something that you could then just share out, send a link, what have you, that has just the information that you want to be able to put out.
So perhaps we could do a video like we did the last time we did the zoning bylaws.
Yes.
So.
You could do something very similar to that and get that kind of information.
Would be good for Josh, or you want me to do that, or?
Whoever would like to. Any of you guys can come down, hop in front of a camera and just rattle off information,
Yeah,
and then we
that
take
might
it from
be
there.
something we want to do on the two
Good idea,
bylaws.
good idea.
Yeah, it worked, I thought it worked okay the last time we did it.
Yeah.
That's an excellent idea. So, I'll talk to Josh offline. When could we,
Just give me a call. We can get it scheduled.
Well, and then the story could be very short. It could just be a link.
And that's what I mean, something that very easily shared out. Somebody has a question, you can just send them the video.
But the story could be a brief statement about that there's more information available on, go to this link.
who's gonna write, are you gonna write the destination, the endpoint for the link?
I don't know, if it's coming from Wareham Media.
Okay. All right, I'll talk to Josh, and maybe that's a good idea. That's probably easier to do than trying to write some articles for where, and I wished Ethan were here tonight. I've tried to get them to come to the meetings every week, but they can't commit to that.
Actually, I think they're at the other commitment tonight.
Yeah, that was what I
I
was
think I know
thinking.
for a fact that they're over there.
Yeah. Shall we go storm the place?
Anything else you'd like to say? So let's, we're going to do this again on the 24th, and maybe I'll reach out to Ethan, and that's how I can get the articles written. And we'll bring some of this up again. Any other questions on this article? Regarding the public hearing, I did get Wareham Week to actually publish that the public hearing was going to be February 24th before it, so now, because everybody, if you're interested in those public hearings, just get the word out that,
Is that
and
the 10th?
I'm going to call Ethan and let him know that things changed. So,
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn from Sam Corbett.
And let's just get on a roll call.
I
Second.
thought you were going to make the motion, but you let him get in.
No, second.
Second by Mike Baptiste. All in favor?
Mike Baptiste, aye.
Jane Gleason, aye.
Julie Moran, aye.
Sam Corbett, aye.
And the chair votes aye. The meeting is adjourned at 7:45. An hour and 45 minutes.